On Friday, Senator Kyrsten Sinema announced that she is leaving the Democratic Party. Oh no. Now, she made the announcement in a column in the Arizona Republic. Here's what she wrote. There's a disconnect between what everyday Americans want and deserve from our politics and what political parties are offering. Okay, look, on that statement, exactly wrong. Now, of course, he happens to also be one of the reasons for that, or at least she was in the Democratic Party. But she continues, I'm privileged to represent Arizonans of all backgrounds in the U.S. Senate, not for long, and am honored to travel to every corner of our state, listening to your concerns and ideas. And then, of course, running away from them, hiding in the bathroom, and to people, activists who brought up your broken promises on immigration reform. Yeah. She continues, Arizonans, including many registered Democrats or Republicans, are eager for leaders who focus on common sense solutions rather than party doctrine. But if the loudest, most extreme voices continue to drive each party toward the fringes. This is coming from a former Green Party member who once criticized capitalism. Yeah. And then suddenly she gets into power and gets hugely rich. And suddenly she's like, I can't believe there are fringes on the left. Can you believe that? Oh, fringes. Fringes. You know what the fringe in the Democratic Party is? People want health care for everyone. People want, for things like insulin to be free. But you know who doesn't benefit from free insulin? Corporations, pharmaceutical companies, the ones that happen to pay Kyrsten Sinema a ton of money. A ton of money. But anyway, she continues, these kinds of lasting legislative successes, if party leaders stay more focused on energizing their bases than delivering for all Americans, these successes will become rarer. Oh no. So now, look, Sinema, her statement's just all garbage. Okay. Sinema is most well known for being the lone vote against the raising of the minimum wage. Okay? She killed something the majority of Americans support. She also refused to carve out an exception to the filibuster to pass voting rights. Once again, backed by the majority of the country. I'll give you some poll numbers on that. 63% of likely voters expressed support for the Freedom to Vote John R. Lewis Act, including 82% of Democrats. Well, of course, she's not a Democrat anymore, so I guess it doesn't matter. Well, what about for independents, her new team? Turns out 62% of independents support the John Lewis Freedom to Vote Act. Huh, weird. And of course, even 42% of Republicans were in favor of it. Now, she says, well, look, we would love to have that, but it's got to be bipartisan. We can't just blow up the filibuster for this. I mean, that would be against, the wishes of the American people, right? Now, it turns out 53% of Americans also support changing the filibuster rules in order to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. So, weird. It seems to be that she is doing all the things that her voters don't want. That's very, very strange. Very strange. Now, she ends it by saying, and again, there's a lot of just nonsense in her post, but she said, when politicians are more focused on denying the opposition party a victory, you just, describe the Republican Party there, than they are in improving Americans' lives, the people who lose are everyday Americans. That's why I've joined the growing numbers of Arizonans who reject party politics by declaring my independence from the broken partisan system in Washington. I registered as an Arizona independent. So it's funny because Sinema has actually really only denied her voters when it comes to policy. She's been against every single popular idea supported by the majority of her voters in Congress. Look, let's be clear. The only people that Kyrsten Sinema cares about are her corporate donors. That's it. She will serve them even more now than she previously has. In fact, I believe the biggest reason she left the Democrats is because she knows that she'll never win a Democratic primary. Oh, hell no. Hell no. The Arizona Democratic Party, they hate her. They despise her. Look up poll numbers for her favorability. It's not good. But the Arizona Democratic Party had previously censured her for refusing to serve the interests of the voters in her state and pass policies like the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Now, the advantage of her being an independent over a Democrat now is that she does not have to go into a primary election if she decides to run, which I doubt. But if she does, she could still pop into a general, be a spoiler, and help a Republican win. Now, why would she want to do that? Donors. Donors. That's it. That's going to help her corporate donors. Yes, look, if the Democratic Party of Arizona was already looking to primary her with someone who was more progressive. So she wouldn't win that primary because her voters despise her. And so, look, why go through all that when you could be an independent, run in a general election anyway, be a spoiler candidate, and destroy the Democrats' chances of retaining that seat? And then, of course, the Republican gets into power and blocks everything that progressives are trying to do and helps Republicans and Republican donors. That's all it's about. That's all it's about. So, look, and by the way, until that happens, because she's still in office till 2024, Democrats will still try to court her. They still will need her or Manchin to pass things. Unless, of course, they can get, the vice president to come in and do a tie-breaking vote. But if anything, she will spend the rest of her term servicing the donors as much as they can in order to secure herself a good job after she inevitably leaves Congress. There's no way she is going to get reelected. There's no way. Only 37% of all likely voters view her favorably. She is underwater by 17 points. She's at negative 17. Among Democrats, 57% viewed her unfavorably. Even among independents, 51% say they view her unfavorably. Another poll conducted in July by Data for Progress and the local Arizona news outlet, the Copper Courier, found that Sinema only had a 42% approval rating among state residents, and only 34% of Arizona voters viewed her favorably. Because, of course. Now, the response to this is unsurprising. A lot of people slamming Sinema, and she deserves every little bit of it. Bulwark columnist Amanda Carptenter said this: feels more like Sinema is announcing her Senate retirement early than a real change in party affiliation. We shall see. Terry Carter, who's a Kentucky-based columnist, said Kyrsten Sinema translated, well, this won't be any fun at all now, so I need to find some other thing that will make me seem important. Matthew Gertz points out a very possible issue here. Rather than risking a primary defeat, she's created a scenario where if the Democrats run a candidate in the 2024 general, they risk throwing the race to the likes of Kari Lake. NBC News correspondent Mark Caputo said, lots of ifs with Sinema, a big one if she runs for re-election. That will make it a three-way race next year with a Democrat and a Republican on the ticket who very well could be Carrie Lake. Communications specialist Michael Starr Hopkins said, Dems win a clear majority in the Senate, and Sinema's reaction is to leave the party to continue taking hostages for Big Pharma. Well, that is her biggest donor. Sinema isn't just a fraud. She's what stupid people think an independent looks like. I stand by everything I've ever said about her. Oh, it just keeps getting better. Former New York congressional candidate Melanie Dargo says, don't overthink Senator Kyrsten Sinema switching from Democrat to independent. She's not driven by ideology. She's driven by which corporations and lobbyists are giving her the most money, which makes her an elected mercenary, not an elective representative of the people. Elected mercenary. God damn. Ohio-based Attorney Jesse Taylor said this: congratulations to Senator Sinema, who can finally pursue her policy passions of and represent the vital interests she cares about, herself. Finally, Chris Lavoie, a radio executive, said, Sinema is blatantly power hungry. When I lived in Tempe, she ran as a Green. Now she wants to convince Arizonans and the rest of the country that she's a quirky maverick. She is none of that. Her vacillation shows that Senator Sinema has no core values. And I agree. All of that. Her value is money. What can I get for myself and my corporate donors? Clear example of someone who is a bait and switch candidate who has just always been out for what helps her the most.